Hello, Disney Plus? Yes, this is Cody Carlson, and I would very much like to subscribe to your service. That's C-A-R... What's that? What? Well, why won't you let me subscribe? Oh, yes, of course. Well, tell the Mickey Mouse actor at Disneyland I apologize, and I hope he recovers soon. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Discriminating Gamer, and today we're going to take a look at Dune from Gale Force Nine. Dune from Gale Force Nine. In Dune from Gale Force 9, 2 to 6 players take on the iconic roles of the various ruling families that made up the Imperium in Frank Herbert's beloved science fiction saga Dune. You could be the Atreides. You could be the Harkonnen. You could be the Emperor. You could be the Bene Gesserit. You could be the Fremen. And of course, you could also be the Spacing Guild. So there's a lot of different characters, little factions you can play, and it does play slightly asymmetrically. Each player is going to have a number of character discs that represent various characters that belong to your faction, as well as their relative strengths. You're going to receive kind of a shield and player aid, a few player aids actually, as well as some starting spice, which is the currency of the game. Now, the game board is a map of Dune, Arrakis, desert planet. Never one drop of rain on Arrakis. Essentially, you've got different spaces that overlap multiple kind of areas on Dune. And what you're going to do is your starting factions are placed in certain areas. Now, there are rocks that are kind of safe spaces from the storm, and then there's, of course, the sand. And if you're caught out in the sand during a storm, your forces are screwed. Now, also at the beginning of the game, you will be able to get a trader card. Now, what this means is one of the character discs that one of the other players has, you will have a card there. I think the Harkonnens get like 4. But you will have essentially a trader that you can play at the appropriate time in order to unsettle the plans of your enemy. Now, the game takes place over several rounds, and each round has several phases to it. The first phase is the storm phase. Essentially, you're going to be moving the storm along. Generally, how this is accomplished is there are 2 battle discs, and they have kind of number wheels on them. And what you will do is I believe it's the 2 people who most recently battled, they will select a number between 1 and 3, I believe. You will add those totals together, and that's how far the storm will move around the circle of Dune. Now, as I say, any forces that are caught in the sand when that storm comes by are destroyed, they are removed, and they are placed in the Tlaxu axolotl tanks, which are just off of the board. Next, you're going to have the spice blow phase. Essentially, you draw a spice card, and it's going to indicate where on the board spice is going to appear and in what quantity. Then you'll place a number of the spice tokens on there from the bank, and you may pull up the Shai-Hulud card. Shai-Hulud. And what you're going to do is if you get the Shai-Hulud card, it's going to allow a Nexus phase. And what that means is at that time you can make an alliance with another player, or you can break an alliance with another player. Now, this is the only time you're allowed to make or break alliances. So you've got to be kind of careful who you want to ally yourself with for the game. After that, you can engage in Chom charity. The Chom Corporation, the Chom Company, combined, Honut, Mercantile, whatever, it is going to go ahead and give players who don't have any spice, if they're at 0, I think they can get up to 2 spice. If they got 1 or 0, they can get bring their, essentially, spice limit up to 2 spice. Next, you're going to have a bidding phase. Essentially, you have a number of treachery cards that are going to be placed face down. Now, these treachery cards are going to be placed face down, and players can go ahead and bid on these different cards. Beginning with the first player, you're going to go ahead and take turns saying, well, I'll bid, 1, and the next person can bid higher, of course, and you go around, people can pass and get out of it. Then you're going to bid on the next card, and the next card, and the next card. Now, these cards are very important. You can only have a hand of 4 of them. They're going to be very important for combat, and they may help you in other ways, and some of the cards will be worthless. Next, you're going to have a revival phase. Essentially, each player is allowed to revive a number of their tokens from the Tlaxu Alaxtotl tanks. You're able to go ahead and take those forces out of there and put them back into your kind of force pool. You then have shipment. Essentially, you can go ahead and place your forces on the board. The Fremen can bring theirs up from the other region of Dune, the southern region of Dune, and you can place them pretty much anywhere on the board. They're landed there, but you do, of course, for every one you land, you do have to pay the guild. That is one of the factions, so the guild's going to be kind of swimming in money because every time you place someone, they're going to be making money. Now, next we have the battle phase, and if ever there are 2 factions in the same space, they are going to engage in combat. If 2 factions occupy space, you cannot place a third faction in that space. So how it works is you go ahead and both players are going to grab one of those battle discs. Now, they have a number wheel, but they also have a spot for a character. You have to place one of your characters in there, or you can place a cheap hero, which is one of your sabotage cards there, and he will take the place of the character. But you can also add other sabotage cards to this hand. Now, you can play different kinds of weapons. For instance, projectile weapons or poison weapons. You can play defense cards that will protect you from poisons or projectiles. But you go ahead, you play both of those cards next to your will. You put that character that you want to play in the will, and then how it works is you can dial up to the number of forces that you want to engage in that battle. So if you have 7 forces, but they're all going to be gone, however many you put into the battle, so you may just want to put in 6 because you still want a guy there at the end of the battle. So you dial 6 in your number wheel, then you put your character in the slot there, and the character's number, say if it's 5, that would be added to the 6, your strength is 11. There may be some other modifiers with cards, but you go ahead, you both reveal your wills, and whoever, of course, has the most power there from both their wills and their character is going to win. But those cards can come into play. A card that, if you've got an assassinate card with poison and your opponent does not have a poison defense, you kill his character. He goes to the Tlaxu tanks, in which case his strength is not added there, and you can totally derail somebody if you can kill them during combat. But also, too, this is where the traitor cards come in. You can play a traitor card so that if you go ahead and reveal your cards and the other fellow his faction has the character that you got the traitor card for, you can play that traitor card and you instantly win. You don't lose anything, and his character dies and he has completely lost the battle and must hang his head in shame.
Oh!
You got your traitor! Next, you have the Spice Harvest phase. Essentially, any character that is in the same space as Spice, he can collect 2 spice per force token he has in that space. However, if he controls, I think it's Carthag or Arakeen, the 2 city spaces, he can then grab 3 spice per token he has in the same space with the spice. Any unclaimed spice remains for the next turn. Finally, there's the Mentat Pause phase. Now, you check for victory. Now, if you are not allied, you have to occupy 3 of the spaces on the board, 3 of the victory spaces on the board, which are the cities. But if you are allied, you have an ally, then the 2 of you combined must control 4 spaces. Whoever can control enough victory spaces, either singular or allied, wins Dune. Now, I often say that's just a bare bones rules overview. There's a lot more going on in this game. In this case, I really, really mean it. There is a ton more that I'm just not even going to get into. There's just a lot. But for instance, the Bene Gesserit have a different victory condition. They can go ahead and predict who's going to win on what turn. They have these prediction cards, and they can say, I predict, the Fremen are going to win in round 7, and then if the Fremen actually win in round 7, they don't win at all. The Bene Gesserit wins because they predicted it. So there's a lot of little kind of exceptions and things like that occur in this game. But there's a lot of other things going on as well. As I say, this game is very asymmetrical. These player powers are quite different. For instance, as I mentioned, the Harkonnen can have 4 treachery cards instead of just 1 that every other player has. The Fremen, their movement's different. They have different things they can do. When you play a Shai-Hulud card, they can actually ride on Shai-Hulud. So there's a lot of different, like I say, faction-specific abilities in this game that are very that make it a very different kind of game for depending on which faction you're playing. There are also advanced rules which get even kind of more in the weeds when it comes to these kinds of rules and things like that. So as I say, there's a super ton of stuff going on here. So a couple of things about Dune, or Dune, as the French call it. Dune is a book series that I love. I've read all of the Frank Herbert books. I really like the first one. Even the second one I like quite a bit. I think they kind of go downhill after that. I mean, there's still interesting ideas, and they're very idea-driven, but the first two, I think, are the best books in the series. I've read the Kevin Anderson and Brian Herbert series. Most of them, I don't know if I've read all of them, but which are like prequels, and they have some that take place after the Frank Herbert books. So there's a lot of different books, and I really like the universe, and I think it's a really fun IP to play in. And Dune, of course, is a game that's been around, that was originally created in the late 70s, and it's kind of been a Grail game because it's been out of print. I think it's been in print and play for a while. And Gale Force 9 just recently re-released it. Now, in 2012 or 13 thereabouts, Fantasy Flight Games decided they were going to reprint Dune, but they could not get the license to the IP. But they did have the licensing for the mechanic, so they essentially just rethemed it into Rex, Final Days of an Empire, which is set in their Twilight Imperium universe. Now, I played Rex once or twice years ago, and I want to play it again to kind of see how it compares, and maybe I'll do that here in the not-too-distant future to see how it compares to Dune. So first of all, with regard to this new edition, I can appreciate what Gale Force 9 is trying to do, and that is to say, make this game as evocative and as true to the original Dune edition that came out. I think it was Avalon Hill, and that means the artwork is very similar. It looks just very similar to that game, and I think that's kind of a shame. I would have liked to have seen this game with updated artwork and updated components, maybe. Not that there's anything bad. The tokens that represent the forces, I wish they could have done something a little better with that. But I mean, as far as the combat dial and the character things, I mean, that's fine. I'm okay with that. A ton of cards here. Production values generally is pretty good. It looks good. Map looks good. No real complaints other than I kind of wish maybe they had updated it a little bit, the artwork a little bit and whatnot. But that minor point. Dune is a game that, I liked Rex when I played it. I did. I mean, I actually really liked it when I played it. But I played so many games since, I'm kind of curious to see how it'd hold up, because I was playing that when I first started getting into the wider world of board gaming. Wild world of board gaming, and I really enjoyed it, and I've wanted to play Dune ever since. And when one plays Dune, one gets the feeling that it was really ahead of its time, that it was a game created in the late 70s that was really innovative, that really could kind of spot where ideas, where games were going, and I really liked that. I really thought it was cool. And this is, of course, from the team that did Cosmic Encounter. And I've heard it suggested that Dune is Cosmic Encounter writ large, right? I don't know about that. But, like I say, it's an innovative game, and I appreciate that. But in some ways, the game also shows its age. And one of the ways in which it shows its age is it's a game that you can be playing it and really invested into it. And this is a game that I like because it's so thematic, and it's so... and it's such a rich experience that it's just fun to play with your friends and laugh and have a good time. But it's also a game that's it's a 3-hour plus game, so it's a game you're going to invest time in, and it's a game too that it becomes very easy if you're playing this game by mid game. It's possible that you can see that there's no path to victory for you, that you're probably not going to win, and you're kind of stuck playing the rest of the game, and there's no real incentive for the people that are winning to try to wrap it up, other than trying to win. And so consequently, it's a game where you will be sitting there, and then you'll be in the position of, okay, now the game for me is playing Kingmaker. Who do I want to help win? And that's I think actually a fun thing to do sometimes in shorter games. In longer games, I don't know. And I've actually been thinking about that a lot too, because a couple years ago, I played a game of Game of Thrones, the board game. And it was the same thing. I was in that position, and I was obvious I wasn't going to win. So I played Kingmaker. I helped somebody else win, and I really offended somebody else. And it's funny because at the time I'm thinking it's just logical. I can't win. I might as well have a hand in trying to decide who is going to win. And I remember several years before that, I was playing Game of Thrones. One of the first times I played Game of Thrones, the board game, and somebody else did that to me, and it really pissed me off. And so in a longer game like that, I don't know that the whole making Kingmaker thing works. And so I'm going to have to kind of re-examine Game of Thrones, too, from that angle. But in a shorter game, I think it's more excusable. Now so that's my big criticism of this game. That's my big problem with Dune. So some other brief criticisms: the shield wall can be blown up with a nuke, and that can totally screw over people in Arrakeen and Carthage. Which again, I understand it both thematically and mechanically, but at the same time, that's something that can definitely put you on that road to not being able to win mid game. There's also the like the Bene Gesserit, there's a thing you don't want to get in a position where all your guys are in the tanks because you won't get them back. It'll be harder to get them back, and that that's another thing there. It's like, well, it almost feels like it's not broken, but it almost feels like it's broken because it's like, well, how do I get out of that mess when if I get to that mess early, I'm screwed. That's game, So stuff like that kind of irks me. But other than that, I like I said, this is a game you can get into. It's so thematic, and it's such an investment, and you're trying to calculate what you're doing all the time. You're trying to outguess other players. You're hoping they're not seeing things you're seeing, and then you're trying to figure out how craft a strategy when it's obvious you're going for similar objectives or similar things there. And I really like that on this level. This is a dudes on the map game I really, really enjoy. But the thing I love most about this game, I think, is the combat system. I really enjoy it. And I remember playing it with Rex, and it didn't have dice, and this was still when I'm new to games, and I couldn't get my head around that. And I thought this combat system was okay when I played Rex initially. I thought that was probably the thing I liked least about it. Now it's the thing I like most about Dune, because of course I understand the what's going on, and I understand how to play it, and I understand you can never 100% try to mitigate losses. You have to make those bold decisions and know it's going to hurt you. And unfortunately, that can mean a bad hand that can really, really screw you over. A bad combat rather can really screw you over and maybe put you in that position where you can't win. But it's fun. The game we're playing here, you're watching. Robert was the Atreides, I was the Fremen, and he attacked me, and he played Thufir Hawat. Just so happened I had the Thufir Hawat card. We were fighting over a spice bloom. I was able to win because I played that traitor card, and it was so beautiful, and I won it. I won that round. Han, who was the Emperor, he won the game. But it's just fun. I just really like that aspect of the game. I think that's just really a lot of fun. Overall, I enjoy Dune. I think it's a fun game to play. It's not a perfect game. There's issues, and maybe, hopefully at some point, you could see a little bit of streamlining to resolve some of these issues. But generally, I really enjoy it. Now, should you buy it? I like it. I'm glad I got it in my collection. I will play it again. But honestly, I think people are going to have some issues with that idea of mid-game, it's obvious I'm not going to win. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a try it before you buy it, but a very positive try it before you buy it, because I love the theme. I love getting into this game. I love the brawling in this game and the dirty dealing in this game. To me, it's a whole lot of fun. I just can't quite give it the buy it, but I'm almost there. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. We are The Discriminating Gamer, and hello? Apple Plus TV? No, I'm still not interested.
Never one drop of rain on Arrakis.